Okay, hey everybody, it's good to see you again. We're here in October weather. If you're joining me tonight, or hopefully in the next couple weeks, if you're watching this later on, my name is Sharon Chaden Glass. I'm an instructional media designer for Sinclair Community College. And before that, I used to teach international students English in higher education. I want to tell you about a book that is coming out. I don't know when it will be published, but the title of it, and the reason I'm telling you about it is because I'm one of the contributors. It's called the Multi-Disciplinary Instructional Designer, Integrating Specialized Skills into Design. So the whole idea behind the book is how people come to instructional design from different disciplines, and how it makes the field really robust in any case, and also also a good resource for people who are transitioning into the work of instructional design. So when it is finally out, I'll let you know for sure, but I'll go ahead and drop the title into the chat so you can see it there as well. We have two guest speakers tonight. One is here so far, and the other one has not joined, but hopefully she will come. I would really like to hear how should we pronounce her name, because it is a language that I do not speak. So our first guest speaker tonight is Rosa, I'm going to get it right, Rosa Saad-Tashman.
Got it.
I got it. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Rosa, and I'm currently a curriculum product manager at Pearson. Prior to that, I was a content manager at a small startup. And prior to that, I taught middle and high school science for 8 years. So I'm very happy to be here tonight and share whatever I can for anyone looking to make the same sort of jump.
All right, Rosa. So my question, to kind of prompt you here a little bit, how did you find out about the field of instructional design? How did you, I found out about it through Glassdoor. I didn't even really know it was a field. It wasn't something that was presented to me when I was teaching in college, or when I was learning in college. How did you find out about it, and how did you kind of make that transition?
So I was actually very lucky early in my career, year 3, that one of my mentors noticed that I was one of the very few teachers. I was at a big charter network, and we had the option of using the curriculum that was given to us and using that day to day. And it was very scripted and it was prescribed, and that's totally fine. Early in your career as a teacher, there's only so many things you can juggle simultaneously. But for me personally, that didn't feel natural. My lessons were very stilted. And so I built my own curricular materials, and my mentor, who happened to have a leadership role within that network, recognized that. And so very early on, I built some curricular materials for the network. And I realized, this isn't just something that, a teacher can do to supplement their own instruction, a couple of years down the line. It could be its own thing. And so I really fell in love with it. It's something I consistently did for all 8 years that I taught. And so when I decided to make the change, I very much wanted to stay in education, or at least doing work that would impact students in the classroom. And I thought instructional design was a very natural progression from my time in the classroom.
I'm going to ask you one more question, one that, a lot of people bring up in the breakout rooms. Maybe I'll beat everybody to it. People usually have questions about e-portfolios. Like, did you have one? And if you did have one, what did you put inside of it? How specific did you get with what you included in the materials that you were giving to employers when you were applying?
Great question. Yes, I did have a portfolio, and I've had a portfolio since maybe year 5, just something that if I built a lesson that I was particularly proud of, or a lab that was particularly well scaffolded, or something that was differentiated in a really creative and interesting way, I would just store it away in my portfolio. And I think the title is something like portfolio, and then it has different folders for assessments, labs, class materials, written materials, like actually typing something out as more of a content designer. And I made it very clear as I split it up. But I was also very mindful that I had different portfolios for different roles as I was interviewing. So my portfolio for product management was more of like the high level stuff I did for my charter network. And then the stuff for my portfolio for content design was more day-to-day classroom stuff that I built to support like fellow teachers versus like unit plans. So being mindful that what you're presenting to employers is what they're actually looking for and what they're interested in engaging with.
What I did when I was looking to kind of make that transition, I didn't have a ton of experience in using like e-learning authoring tools. And I didn't have access to some of the learning management systems that employers were asking me to have experience with. So what I did was I went into the courses that I had already built within the learning management system that I was using, and I did a screen capture. And I didn't just go in blind and just, ramble about what was there. I had like 3 or 4 specific things that I wanted to point out. And I did like a tour, like, hi, my name is Sharon, and I'd like to take you around this course that I've designed to kind of show you my strong points in instructional design. And I pointed out like 3 or 4 things that showed I knew what objectives are. I knew how to design an assessment. I knew how to create an interactive activity and line all of it up. I don't think I got into things like file management, but I wanted to show in a visual and a practical way that I could apply adult learning theory to actual curriculum design and specifically in like online instruction. So I made that video and I just put that link in a section of my resume called video portfolio. So mine was kind of real, I hate to say, like, I didn't put a lot of time into it, but I did what I could because I was really trying to just, get out there, get some interviews and see if I could get a job without having to go through a whole lot of hoops to show that I could do it. And it worked. And it worked for me. I don't see Orla, and I hope she's okay, or maybe we got the time wrong or something, but I'll go ahead and talk just a little bit about myself, since some of you, there's a lot of names I don't recognize. Some names I do, but some names I don't. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Sharon, as I said, and I just saw, thanks, Jan. Thank you for your comment. I got into instructional design after 13 years of teaching English to international students in higher education. I really enjoyed that work, but there was no real path to promotion or really growing myself. I wasn't super encouraged to develop myself professionally because it was kind of like, well, where do you go after this? I mean, you're just like a teacher till you die. So it's like, well, it's really encouraging. Thanks, guys. So I was really, and I also, the work-life balance of being a teacher and having 2 little kids there's just not working out. So the way that when I got to kind of like my breaking point, I was looking for what else can I do? And I did a search in Glassdoor and found out about this job called Instructional Designer. And it seemed a whole lot easier than what I was doing as a real life in-person teacher. And like, oh, you just design instruction and you don't have to implement it? And you pay more money? I don't understand. You get a bathroom break whenever you want one? So I don't understand this. What is going on? So I looked into it more, and not every job that I read about interested me, but there were some that I was super interested in. And so I looked at what kind of skills they were looking for, what kind of software they were asking applicants to have knowledge of. And my personal preference was to do a certificate program. And I did technology enhanced learning, and I did that at the university where I was teaching. So I didn't have to pay anything for it, except my time and my energy and my effort while I had 2 small kids. And after I finished that, I got a job within 6 months, and happily ever after. It's been great. I was waiting for the job to kind of start wearing on me. Hasn't happened. The workload is not what it was when I was a teacher. People don't use me at 150% anymore. It's very nice, you know. So that's a little bit about me. We have plenty of time for breakout rooms today. So I'm going to pause the recording here, and we'll go into some breakout rooms. All right, we are back. Before I forget, I want to let you know that the next session that we're going to have is on November 1st. 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you are interested in getting signed up today for that, I'm going to drop the registration link into the chat so you have it. I'll just open it up for questions. Me or Rosa, or you can just ask the room in general, and maybe if it's not me or Rosa, maybe someone else has an answer for you. Any questions out there? Corey, how are you doing?
I'm good. Hi, Sharon.
Hi.
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you too.
I do think that I don't know if Jan's still here, but she had brought up, or I had mentioned your excellent PowerPoint about the different kinds of instructional designer roles. Because she had asked, like, kind of where could we, is there like a list somewhere that we could try to figure out like what sort of role we wanted to aim ourselves for. So I just had mentioned your presentation. That's great.
Perfect. Yeah, I just put that in the chat for those that are interested in it. And then in the recording of this, I'll put a QR code and you can grab that and navigate to it. I made it for TESOL 2022, and it's been super helpful as a reference. Anytime someone's like, hey, I have a question about, and I'm like, funny thing, I made a presentation that addresses that. So happy to share. Curtis asked a great question in our room. He asked me, what was the biggest challenge for me in switching careers? And I thought for maybe 2 seconds and was like, letting go and leaving and imagining my life in a different situation, as a different person, in a different role. That was, I think, the hardest part, because once I stepped into that role and other people treated me like, oh, you're the person that's doing that, that's awesome, then I believed in it too, right? And I got better and I built my skills, and I didn't always understand everything, but I asked questions and I learned. And now, like, when I look back at the last 3 years and like a list of, the projects I worked on, I'm like, man, I feel like, yeah, I can confidently say that I'm in this field now, and it feels pretty good. Rosa, any questions from your breakout room that sparked some good discussion?
I think a similar question I had was like my biggest challenge transitioning. And for me, it was going from a teacher where, you have standards, but it's your classroom. Like your day-to-day looks however you want it to look, your lessons, within reason, look however you want them to look. And then going from that to, if you're an instructional designer or a content designer, you're following a handbook. And it's, there's very little room for like flair or how you want to interpret it. You're following the handbook, and that shift was challenging for me to kind of really fit into that mold consistently. It took a lot of practice, and I as I told my breakout room, I had to like get the hours in and get the reps in. But learning how to be, I guess, in a way, letting go, like becoming more flexible and being willing to let someone else dictate what it was going to look like, the length, the style, all of that.
Yeah, that has been, not being the subject matter expert anymore has been interesting. Been like, okay, so we're making something for physical therapy. I don't know anything about physical therapy, but I'll sit here and I'll listen, and you can tell me what we're going to need to do, and I'll just take notes, and I will be your facilitator. So
it is really interesting. Like as a teacher, you assume that any role outside of teaching is going to have the same sort of scope. And a lot of my first month at Pearson has been people being like, wait, no, that's not your role. That's their job. That's not your role. That's their job. And then I'm like, so what's my job? Like, what part of the pie is my, like, it's such a smaller piece of the pie.
yes,
but you're held, like, you got to get that piece 100% right. But it's, you go from the whole pie to just this little sliver. And that was also a little bit of a struggle figuring out, like, where does my piece start and someone else's, because you're so used to doing all of it all the time, every day.
yes. Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I had the same thing too, where I'm like, well, I can go just one step more and do that. And it's like, oh, but that might, oops, that was her territory. Right. And like, and then you're in the risk of offending someone if you do their job for them. So yeah, I agree. That was a little bit difficult because, like you said, you're a one-man band when you're a teacher. So
I don't know if Marcia is willing, but how is the IDOL course going for you?
Overwhelming. Which, well, in a mentor meeting last night, if it's overwhelming, that means we've given you enough content. You've gotten your money's worth.
Oh,
I'm in IDLE too. I joined in January, and it does get easier, but the analogy of drinking from a fire hose is very true. And it's extremely easy to get extremely overwhelmed.
Yeah, but it's good. But
it has a lot of quality information.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask, what is IDLE?
The initial 8 weeks allows people to like meet with a mentor, meet with a coach, but technically it's and it gets support of your peers, but then it's asynchronous. You can continue. So, and honestly, I'm so crunched on time right now. People keep dumping on my calendar that I'm going to actually shift to the next cohort because I can't do the work I need to do. So, but definitely, I'm already saying it's worth it. It's worth it.
It's really helpful too that they have that a lot of things are recordings, even some of the mentor sessions,
yep.
so that you can do them when and if you can.
Yeah.
So Andrew asked what IDOL is, and it's one of those kind of cohort project-based learning private academies that you can do to learn about instructional design. And I just dropped the link into the chat for you to take a look at. I'm not promoting one over another. I haven't done these. I am just telling you what other people have told me, what they have found helpful. And I have heard from a number of people that this has been a really high quality learning experience for them to break into ID. So
yeah, I think it's really focused on corporate e-learning design. So, instructorless online classes for training or onboarding or that kind of thing.
It is focused on corporate design, but there are other options as well. But the person who founded is Dr. Robin Sargent, and she is definitely an extremely business-oriented sort of person.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of money in corporate e-learning. So if you're like, you know what, I just need to make some money.
But they have sessions on other things. For example, in addition to the weekly mentor sessions that are at different times of the day, and some people record theirs and some don't, they also have intermittent presentations. And for example, in November, they're having a person who's talking about government employment for IDs. And sometimes they have people focusing on graphic arts or freelancing, or there's just so much information there. And recently, like in the last month or two, they became a licensed trade school in the state of Georgia. Yeah. Cool. And she does podcast, and Robin herself is a very effervescent, high energy, cheerleader type person. And she's very knowledgeable, and she did work in higher education. She was a dean of students, like one of the youngest dean of students at the school where she had worked. She lives in a suburb of Atlanta. She's very Southern, and in her whole style, the way her accent, I'm Southern also. So I know when somebody's Southern, the way she dresses, the way she talks, her whole personality, she's very cute and very energetic. Yeah. But she's also very smart and very, like she said that she fired her PhD professor because the person wasn't fast enough. But one of the themes is there is no behind in the academy. So it's lifetime membership. And so you can continue to go to as many cohorts as you want to, as long as it exists. Yeah.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
There you go. So you've had a lot of people vet that. So that's pretty good. Any last?
I also offer the other thing they focus on is getting your portfolio up and running, because again, even Rosa is shaking her, like, you've got to have something. But also then they have lots of modules on your LinkedIn. So when I was considering, like, okay, I'm going to leave teaching, and I would go on LinkedIn and I'd see these beautiful headers and people would have their name, learning designer. I'm like, how'd you do that? Idle.
Yeah. And her theme, and she just had a book that came out. In fact, today is the last day that it's free on Amazon. Kindle, today's the last day on Kindle. Yeah. And it's called Do It Messy. So she's got a 14-day, she has a 5-day jump start intermittently before each of the cohorts. And currently there are 4 cohorts per year. And the 4th cohort of the year just recently started. And then when this one ends, the next one will be in January. And then she has the 5-day jump start for that. And then she has a lot of podcasts. She has some free stuff. And her Do It Messy approach is, don't wait until it's perfect before you put it out. Just put something out. And then one of the really big benefits is that you post things after you create it, and you get feedback from just anybody. And then after you get a little bit of feedback, you've had it posted for 1 or 2 days, then it's eligible to submit to a coach for feedback. And then you can continue posting it and getting feedback as many times as you want, so that you get your product good enough that you can put it in your portfolio. But because a lot of people have perfectionistic tendencies, one of her big approaches is, don't let the perfectionism bog you down. Just do it, and then perfect it as it is iterated.
Excellent.
That's one of her big themes.
Well, it's just like teaching a class, right? You're just
absolutely.
It's 9:30 a.m. and you have whatever you planned, and you go and do it, and it fails, and then you think, okay, how will do it? How will I do it differently next time? There.
Exactly. And if
you're teaching, it better over time.
If you're teaching 4 sections of the same course, probably the 3rd one's going to be the best one, because on the 4th one you're winding down, the 1st one you're starting up. So that's been my experience.
There was a great coach last night who made a comment because everybody was concerned about portfolios. And he said, as a learning designer, a senior learning designer, I'm not hiring you to make a portfolio. I'm hiring you to make content. So yes, make a nice, minimally viable portfolio, MVP, she calls it, Dr. Robin does. But he's more interested in what you've created versus having this fancy portfolio. So that's another thing to consider.
Yep.
Yeah, don't get caught up in the pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Minimally
DIM stands for Do It Messy. So MVP and DIM are two big things. Thank you so much. I have a 5 o'clock appointment, so I've got to run, which I'm sure everybody's going to run because Sharon always starts and ends on time. Thank you.
Done, everyone.
Bye-bye.
So I hope I see you guys November 1st. Please go ahead and register if you feel like joining me again. And grab that Do It Messy approach by Robin Sargent. I put the link in the chat. And thank you, Rosa, for being here. I really, really appreciate you sharing your experience with us and letting us know how it's going. And congratulations on your new job. That's awesome.
Thank you so much for having me, Sharon. And to anyone here, if you want to connect with me, I'm always open to having like coffee chats with anyone. People in the industry were so helpful to me when I was looking to make the jump. So I'm always very open and willing to pay it forward.
I love it. All right, beautiful, everybody. Have a great night and hopefully see you in November. Bye all.